The reality is more unsettling than you realize. A woman is capable of abandoning all she holds dear. Her principles, her kin, even her own offspring. This happens when she senses a man possesses the strength to master her internal disorder. That isn't a fantasy. It's rooted in biology and proven by history. During ancient conflicts, when a city fell, the women who survived didn't flee. They acclimated. They wed their conquerors and bore their children. Not from desire, but because survival is pragmatic. The female drive is not tethered to ethics. It is tethered to strength. She might label you as poisonous, yet if you project an aura of dominance, if your stillness overpowers her turmoil, she will yield. This isn't a romantic surrender. It's an instinctual one, something she can't even articulate, but you must. Freud's goal wasn't to disparage women. It was to understand their code. He proposed that under every decision, every feeling, every act of seduction, a battle was being fought. Her raw desire versus her social conditioning. She can't explain her attraction to volatile elements. Why she sabotages the man who provides stability, yet gives in to the one who unravels her. Freud recognized this as a system, not a flaw. Her ID, the primitive center, hunts for power, security, and gratification. It has no interest in your morality or your kindness. It asks one question: can this man command my internal storm? Then, her superego, the echo of her upbringing, her culture, her scars, condemns this urge, buries it in shame, and tells her it's a sin. And caught in the crossfire, her ego just fights to exist. This is the source of her inconsistency. This is why she pulls you in and pushes you away. Why she seems erratic but maintains a perfect grip on your focus. Because in her subconscious, love isn't about comfort. Love is about dominance. Fail to grasp this, and you'll misread her provocations as playfulness, her withdrawal as mystery, and her turmoil as innocence. And you'll miss the one truth she will never vocalize. She isn't looking for safety. She's looking to be possessed. Sigmund Freud started his career simply as a physician trying to heal suffering. But the more he probed the human psyche, the more troubling his findings became, especially regarding women. He refused to trust surface appearances, not a smile, not polite manners, not even a display of emotion. What captured his focus was the unconscious mind, the part that communicates without speaking, acts without logic, and desires without approval. And as he investigated the true nature of female desire, not what they said they wanted, but what they moved toward, he found a reality that demolished our polite fictions. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't safe. It was primal, raw, and built on a foundation of survival and surrender to a stronger force. Freud observed women turning their backs on kind, stable men, only to fixate on those who ignited their fear, their shame, or their deepest needs. He noted their words clashed with their instincts. Their feelings of guilt did not alter their behavior. He termed this repression, a mental shield to hide truths the mind cannot bear. Women were burying their own nature, and society was handing them the shovel. When Freud dared to speak this, he was met with outrage. He was ridiculed, censored, and despised. Not because he was mistaken, but because his observations were too accurate. Because no one, especially not the woman herself, is prepared to admit what truly steers her. You believe she's giving you the cold shoulder? That her lack of response equals a lack of interest? Freud would argue this isn't about you. It's her mind shielding itself from a feeling it cannot process. Her silence isn't empty space. It's a precisely engineered response from her subconscious. It's a defense mechanism. When her ID, her primal drive for connection, is activated, it sends panic through her entire system. Because deep down, the child she was is still present. And that child learned a hard lesson. Caring leads to being left. Maybe she wept in her room and no one answered. Maybe she looked to her father for support and found only a void. That trauma didn't just disappear. It embedded itself in her unconscious. Now, as a woman, that agony wears the mask of control. A voice inside whispers, "Pull away before he can hurt you." So, when she leaves your text on read, but is the first to view your story, lingers just out of reach, understand what's happening. You haven't lost her. You've struck a nerve. You've activated her deepest-seated trauma. This is repression live and in real time. Her mind is burying its desire for you because the superego screams that closeness is a threat. Her ego tries to find a middle ground. Don't write back. Don't let yourself feel. Stay in command. She doesn't ghost you to be cruel. She ghosts you to keep her own fragile world from falling apart. You are not contending with a woman. You are contending with her past. And here is the devastating irony. The more real you are, the more of a threat you seem to her subconscious. You offer warmth, but her system was built for the cold. You offer presence, but her mind was shaped by absence. Do not interpret her silence as a personal attack. See it as proof of the war she is still fighting with herself. When a woman flees for no apparent reason, it's not always because she fears you. It's because she fears what you make her feel. Her eyes lock with yours, full of desire. Her body language invites you in, but the second you make a move, she recoils. She flirts, she teases, she retreats. You are left in limbo, stuck between a yes and a no. This isn't a game of immaturity. It is a form of psychological combat. And Freud identified this long before dating apps ever existed. It is the core conflict, the ID versus the superego. Her ID craves the thrill, the connection, the intimacy, the surrender. It isn't concerned with rules, traditions, or consequences. But her superego judges every single impulse. It breathes shame. Behave yourself. Don't be easy. And so, her mind splits in two. This internal division manifests as sexual manipulation. It may not be deliberate, but it is always tactical. As a girl, she learned that being noticed meant being safe. If she was desirable, she had value. But giving in completely? That was dangerous. So today, she entices without meaning to. The hint of skin, the lingering glance, the accidental touch. It's all designed to trigger your masculine pursuit. She wants to be wanted, but not won. She craves the attention, but not the capture. This is a classic example of what Freud termed reaction formation, when an individual displays the exact opposite of their true feeling as a defense. She may yearn for closeness, but she acts aloof. She may feel intense desire, but she talks only of boundaries and taking it slow. Because to admit what she really wants would destroy her illusion of being in control. You see it as hot and cold. The reality is, she is torn between her appetite and her terror. Her ego remains stuck in the middle, trying to manage the conflict. It tells her, flirt, but don't follow through. Keep him guessing. Stay in charge. And the moment you get too close, her unconscious screams, retreat. You will never win by playing her game. If you pursue her physically, you will be destroyed emotionally. A woman can easily manipulate a man who is desperate for her, but the man who is centered in his own identity, she has no power over him. And that scares her more than anything. You believe she's unique, different, one of a kind. She doesn't seem to need anyone. But that feeling in your gut isn't attraction. It's the feeling of scarcity. Freud would explain that this has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with what she symbolizes to your unconscious. The validation you've always craved, but never got. When a woman withdraws, becomes distant and unavailable, your own ID sounds the alarm. It yells, don't let this one go. Fight for this. Prove you're worthy. That impulse isn't love. It's a symptom of your own emptiness. Perhaps as a boy, your mother's love was conditional. Affection one moment, coldness the next. This programmed your nervous system to perform for approval. You learned that love must be earned, not simply given. So today, when a woman offers that same toxic blend of hot and cold, your subconscious lights up. I recognize this. This feels like home. You're not falling for her. You're falling for the pattern. You're captivated only because her actions are a perfect match for your oldest trauma. Her emotional absence is just a screen, reflecting back all the times you felt unseen as a child. You don't just want her. You want to win. This is what Freud called displacement. You are not pursuing her. You are pursuing an emotional echo from your childhood. You aren't drawn to her. You are addicted to the struggle of trying to be seen. And she senses this, even if she can't name it. The moment she pulls back, your sense of self begins to crumble. Your worth is now tied to her response. But here's the cold truth. No woman should ever hold that kind of authority over your emotional state. As long as you equate emotional deprivation with love, you will always be on your knees for women who give you just enough to survive, making you think it's a banquet. You don't become worthy by finally earning her approval. You become worthy by seeing the pattern and refusing to be its victim. She says she's all in. She tells you, it's you. She plans a future, a home, a life. She talks about your children. You feel like you've finally won. And then, out of nowhere, the floor drops out. The dream vanishes. She's changed her mind, or worse, she's blaming you for the exact thing she just promised. What happened? Freud identified this as projection, the unconscious defense of blaming someone else for your own internal conflicts. The truth is, she wasn't deceiving you. She was deceiving herself. And you were just the prop she used to act out her internal drama. At first, her ID was in control, high on the fantasy of attachment and desire. But as that fantasy started to look like a real-life possibility, her superego, a critic built from her fears, her family's rules, and her past traumas, started its attack. This is a trap. You're not good enough. He'll abandon you. This will fail. That internal war became unbearable. So, rather than owning it, she transferred it. You became the problem. You were the one moving too fast. You were the reason she couldn't trust this. You became the scapegoat her subconscious required to justify its retreat. This is an old pattern. Women who were forced to grow up too fast or felt abandoned as children often have a crippling fear of real commitment, but they still crave the fantasy of it. They borrow your stability to build their dream, and then they burn it all down the second it becomes real. It's reaction formation. She acts as if she wants stability and forever, but deep down, she is terrified of the vulnerability it requires. So she flips the script, sabotages the connection, and tells herself, I knew he was too good to be true, when the reality is, she was never honest with herself. And this is the trap most men fall into. They accept the blame. They internalize the guilt. They try to fix a problem that was never theirs. They beg for a chance to prove themselves inside someone else's war. But you can never win a fight that's happening inside someone else's mind. You cannot rescue someone from the very lies they need to survive. The man who understands this doesn't debate her sudden change of heart. He sees the play for what it is, and he quietly leaves. She ridicules you. She dismisses your drive. She insults your character, calls you controlling, toxic, arrogant, cold. She states, I would never date a guy like you. And yet she never fully leaves. She's always on the edge of your life, always watching, always finding a reason to interact. This isn't a contradiction. It is reaction formation. Freud's name for a defense where you express the exact opposite of what you actually feel, because the truth is too much to handle. What she's concealing is her interest. What she's terrified of is her own impulse to submit. What she's emotionally disguises as disgust is a deep, overwhelming need for masculine strength. Her words are a smokescreen. Our biology, however, cannot lie. She attacks the very qualities her ID is drawn to: strength, certainty, and power. Why? Because she was programmed to fear what she wants. Perhaps she learned that strong men were dangerous, or that wanting one made her a bad feminist, or just a cliché. So her superego, that inner voice of judgment and shame, mounts its defense. He's a narcissist. He's bad for me. It's far easier to label the desire as toxic than to actually give in to it. So she uses her words as weapons, hoping to destroy the part of herself that is drawn to you. And every time you stand firm, every time you don't react to her emotional static, she despises you even more. But that hatred is mixed with arousal, because your unmoving masculine center is the very thing her internal chaos craves. Here is where the average man fails. He defends. He explains. He apologizes. He tries to argue against her accusations, not seeing he just lost the frame. But the man who sees the mechanism never responds to the words. He hears the subtext. He hears what her unconscious is really saying. You awaken something in me that I've been taught to hate. Your presence makes me feel things I'm supposed to suppress. And that requires only one response. A solid, silent, unmoving presence. Because when a woman starts a fight with you over the very control she wants you to take, you don't argue. You don't back down. You don't chase. You simply hold. And in that stillness, her defenses start to crumble. You believed she was the prize. But if you look past the surface, the beauty, the drama, what do you really see? A familiar pattern. A familiar pain. A rerun of an old show. As Freud explained, the unconscious is doomed to repeat what it has not healed. We are drawn to the same pain, not because we are broken, but because that pain feels like home. That's the great illusion. You were never in pursuit of her. You were in pursuit of a ghost from your own past, a ghost of your own unmet needs. The woman who ignores you, who pulls you in and pushes you away, who perfectly mirrors your mother's inconsistency or your father's absence. She feels so important because she activates the wounded boy inside you. The boy who still thinks that if he can just win her love, if he can just solve this puzzle, he'll finally be whole. But healing you is never her responsibility. The betrayal wasn't hers. It was your own. You betrayed yourself when you assigned her the role of fixing your internal emptiness. And worst of all, you thought that if you just suffered correctly, if you were patient enough, you'd be rewarded. But you weren't in love. You were mesmerized by emotional scarcity, by a script you memorized as a child. You were hoping that by fixing her, you could somehow save that boy. And that is why you keep breaking. Because no woman can mother the man who refuses to father himself. The core delusion wasn't that she was special. The core delusion was that you needed her validation to be a man. You don't win this by playing. You win by walking off the field. This woman who provokes, withdraws, and seduces, she isn't the enemy. She is simply a reflection. And your only task is to stop being afraid of what you see. Freud's ultimate answer for this wasn't repression. It was sublimation. The act of taking all that raw, chaotic energy, the need, the hunger, the ache, and channeling it toward a greater purpose. So you feel that pull to chase her. Stop. Hold that energy and aim it at your own development. Because the man who is immune to her manipulation isn't the man who gets her. He's the man who realizes he doesn't need to. While she is crafting social media posts designed to get a reaction, you are building your body, your mind, and your mission. While she is gauging her value by the attention she gets, you are honing your purpose in silence. Let your indifference be precise. Let your stillness have the weight of a man who knows his own worth. Your ego is no longer trapped in the middle, trying to please your ID and her superego. It is now anchored in your reality. This is emotional sovereignty. You experience the feelings, but you do not obey any feeling that conflicts with your purpose. You no longer look for women who challenge your worth. You attract women who can see it, because it is written in your posture. And if they don't, you remain unmoved. Not because you are heartless, but because your warmth is a reward, not a tool for negotiation. The feminine nature is not healed by a man who worships her. It is healed by observing a man who is immovable, a man who will not compromise his mission, not for her beauty, not for her guilt, and not for his own loneliness. And that man is created in the instant you finally choose your own path over the need for her approval, over the comfort of being wanted by someone who doesn't even know what she wants. You require no explanation from her. You do not need closure. You don't need that final text, that apology, or that last conversation. Your silence is the only statement necessary. Clarity is the only closure. Let her continue her patterns. Let her mistake her confusion for liberation. Let her run from the very fire she was praying for. You are not here to make sense of her chaos. You are here to rise above it. A man must eventually turn and leave. Not in rage, not in pain, but with a profound and quiet calm. The kind of calm that comes when you stop chasing apparitions. She never belonged to you. She was just a mirror for your own unhealed wounds. And now, you no longer bleed for reflections. You don't try to hurt her. You don't try to save her. You don't wait for her to get it. You simply vanish with your self-respect intact. Because the ultimate threat to a person who relies on manipulation is not a man who fights back. It's a man who has become completely indifferent. That is the precise moment her influence dissolves, and your true power is born.